Hey there, my teacher friends. I'm going to wade right in and tell you I don't believe we can teach real reading comprehension through programs and online apps. I know there are some of you who are going to shut this episode right off because them's fighting words, right? But with all my years of experience in education, I can say that kids in today's classrooms comprehend less of what they read, think less critically, and read for pleasure less than any generation before them. And that's not because teachers aren't teaching or working hard, because we're all working our tails off like never before. But chances are you've been handed or been even required to use the wrong tools and methods for teaching reading. Well, don't worry, there's hope. Today's episode is sponsored by everyteachereveryday.org. Teachers, I know you're juggling a lot of plates this year. Every Teacher Every Day wants to make the juggling smoother for teachers with its new website available at zero cost. With a searchable database of free lesson plans and resources, Every Teacher Every Day provides a diverse community of wise and witty educators to engage with. I love the idea behind this website. It's easy to use and effective, and it's my favorite teacher price, free. You can join the community now by going to everyteachereveryday.org/teachjoyfully. I'm Lisa Burns, a teacher success coach, veteran elementary teacher, and mom of 5. And this is the Teach Joyfully podcast. Thanks for joining me today. Let's dive in. Now, I'm going to tell you that I'm not opposed to programs and apps that actually work and used in moderation. Online books can be great. They give us easy access, lots of choices. Children can read them anywhere, and sometimes that works. But we need paper books too. There needs to be a balance. And I think sometimes it's easy to lose sight of that because we're all about making things easy and cost effective, right? And filling classrooms with paper books can be expensive, but you cannot replace the experience of reading a great paper book. So remember, balance is key, especially as we talk about reading comprehension and student engagement. The format of the book can have an impact, so make sure you have a balance. So there are 5 key elements that impact reading comprehension for your students. Yes, there's more than that, but there's 5 major ones. The first one is you need to teach reading comprehension from an actual storybook. You should be reading to your students and teaching the new comprehension skill. Why do I say that? When we read to our students and teach comprehension skills, we're taking the physical act of reading out of the equation. It levels the playing field. That means your entire class can learn the same skills, and then they can go back and apply it to whatever text they're reading later on. So often, students who are at the lower levels in reading don't get the same comprehension skill instruction as the students who are at the higher levels of reading. And this creates an inequality because it's hard to catch up. Students at the lower level never quite get the same instruction as students at the higher level, and they're missing out. This is not something that they can't do. It just may be something that they struggle to do if it's a shared reading text. But if we do it as a read aloud, now it's accessible to everyone because you're working together to make sense of the text as a group. And the physical act of reading is no longer part of the equation, so students can focus entirely on the new strategy. With a read aloud, you're working together to make sense of the text while using that skill or strategy that you're teaching. You can model your thinking and demonstrate how it's done, and students can grasp it at a different level because they're listening in instead of trying to manage to do it themselves when they don't really know how to do it and may still be struggling with the physical act of reading. So the next key is that you need to build and access background knowledge. Now, I know you already know this one. This is one that you already do. But did you know that it is an essential piece to reading comprehension? It is. Whether you're doing a picture walk, you're having a discussion to access what students already know about the topic, and giving them as much input as you can to help them fill in the gaps. And I know picture walks are kind of a standard, but sometimes I don't do picture walks, and I do that very intentionally Sometimes when I'm teaching, I don't want my students to see the end of the story. And so I might not do a picture walk, or I don't do a picture walk throughout the whole book. Maybe I just do it for the beginning, but I want my students to be surprised by the ending. So you need to gauge what your purpose is and what you want your students to get out of the book before you go diving into a picture walk every time. However, you can still discuss the topics and any kind of vocabulary or things that your students might struggle with, any concepts that are going to come up in the book, and help them fill in the gaps before you start reading. The next key is to introduce students to different genres. This is the beauty of doing read alouds as part of your teaching strategy, because you can pull out any kind of genre that you want. So introducing students to different genres is easy. Now, why do we want children, even very young children, to be introduced to different genres? Well, how often have you had a student, even when they get to 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade, who are not committed readers because they've never found something that they're truly in love with? These are quite often students who have not been introduced to enough genres, especially over the years. Maybe one year they have, and another year they haven't. If we can do this every single year, at some point, these students start to latch on and figure out what it is that they really love. It might be something that really surprises you. You can't predict what a student's going to love. I tell you, every single year, I have a student who surprises me by what it is they decide is the best thing ever. We want to broaden students' horizons, give them as much input as we can so they can find all the different genres that they like. And yes, sometimes you get that student, they're a one genre kid. That's okay. At least they have something that they love. Over the years, they'll be required to read lots of other things though, and they need to know how to understand and read and interpret different genres. Reading a mystery is different than reading a fairy tale. Each genre has different things we're looking for and interpreting as we go along. They have different elements, and we need to understand that to fully understand that particular book and that particular genre. We want students to appreciate a wide variety of reading, even if it's not their favorite. They don't have to love every type of reading, but they do need to understand it because they're going to encounter different genres throughout their years in school, at the very least. In addition, by reading different genres, you're broadening your students' knowledge and their view of the world. This is a win on any level, and it's so easy to do with picture books and a read aloud. And the next key is quite obviously teaching skills and strategies. I know you teach all the skills and strategies already, but do you teach children how and when to use them? Sometimes we can forget that piece, and it is an important one. The first thing that students need to be able to do is decode. They need to be able to monitor themselves. They need to be able to use their phonics to decode unknown words. And they need to be able to use all the cues and be able to decode and understand what it is that they're reading. That's the first step. And that one gets a lot of attention when we're teaching children to read. We also need to give them a sense of place and space in the book. Students need to understand how far into the book things are happening. How long is the beginning? Where does the beginning end? How do I know that? Okay, this is the middle. They need to understand, okay, here's the middle. Here's all the information that is supporting the beginning and giving me more of the story, preparing me for the end. Where does the end start? How do I know it's the end of the book? They need that sense of space and place in the book in order to be able to gauge what's happening and if they're in the beginning of the book, the middle of the story, or the end of the story. Is it wrapping up? How do you know? Do you only have a few pages left? Well, probably the book is wrapping up, but when did it start wrapping up? These are not just important things for them to understand in their reading. It helps them in their own writing as well, because they get to understand how books are constructed, how a story and a plot line move along. Students also need to know the story elements: setting, characters, theme, plot, conflict. Now, story elements, some people list them as 5, some list 7, some list 8. Typically, Story elements in the elementary school, we talk about setting, characters, theme, plot, conflict, and point of view. We don't talk about tone and style till usually the upper elementary years, but sometimes you can talk about it with a class that really understands that at a younger level. And then there's all those thinking strategies, from making connections to questioning, noticing, noting the author's word choices, and wondering about that, and on and on and on. And once students have a handle on a good portion of these, we start talking about synthesizing. And once students get a good handle on a lot of these skills and strategies, then we can start talking about synthesizing. Synthesizing is where we're helping students become aware of their own thinking and how it changes as they read. Another key to be able to practice reading comprehension and get really good at it in their personal reading is interest. What is the student interested in? So how do we help students become aware of and understand what it is that they actually like? Well, first we start with things they tell us that they like, things they're interested in, sports they play, those kinds of things. Fun things they like to do with their family or hobbies that they have. From there, that's when we get into all of the opportunities. We can present new genres and topics, whether it's through our read aloud or just presenting different types of books to a student to give them a chance to try them. A couple of great ways to do this are book tastings and book talks. It's a great way to introduce students to other books and have students introduce other students to books that they've loved. Sometimes that's just what students need to hear to be able to pick up a new book and give it a go. And don't forget to help your students dig deeper. Students don't know what they don't know, and our job is to help match them with books and present them with lots of opportunities to discover what it is that they love. The last key to great reading comprehension is a student's perception of themselves as a reader. How a child thinks of themselves as a reader, whether they think they're capable, incapable, dumb, smart, never understand, slow, fast reader, whatever it is that they believe about themselves, that becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. In order for us to change that, we need to foster a love of reading, and one of the best ways to do that is through read-alouds. And another way is to foster confidence. Stress growth and progress over perfection. When we can show students their growth and progress over time, it's encouraging and exciting for them to see that, yes, I'm getting better as a reader. I am learning new things, and this is important. So keeping track of students' progress and be able to share that with them in mini conferences is really important. Offering students lots of opportunities to encounter books that they might love and be curious about can also foster confidence and excitement over reading. Book talks, book tastings, and lots of time and space to practice. These are important ways for students to develop a different perception of themselves as a reader. We can also foster their confidence with the kind of comments that we make, especially in small group reading time. In addition, how we speak to our class also changes their perception of themselves. When I talk to a class whole group, I say things like, well, as readers, we, and continue on. I give them the assumption that, yes, we're all readers and expect them to nod along with me. If you say it enough, they start to believe it. It's just another way for students to get that input and that assumption that, yes, I'm a reader too. We are all readers. We just read at different ways and different speeds at different times. We all have different skills, and we're all still learning. We're never done learning about how to read well. Now, I do believe that teaching whole group with a read aloud is one of the best ways to help model and teach these skills and strategies. However, we also go and reinforce them in our small group reading time. In addition, individual reading time is a great place for students to go back and try and practice these skills on their own. So just a quick recap. We want to build background knowledge. We want to introduce and discuss different genres and present lots of different opportunities for students to learn about them and learn how to read those genres. We want to talk about strategies and skills, and we want to help students dig deep to figure out what exactly they're interested in and what kind of genres they like. Last and definitely not least, we want to build in ways to build self-belief into our reading program. So that's it, my teacher friends. We're out of time and I'm out of breath. Thanks so much for joining me today. I love hearing what my listeners think and what topics they want to hear more of. You can DM me on Instagram or send me an email. If you liked today's episode, I'd love it if you'd go to Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen and leave a review. And while you're there, hit the subscribe button so you'll never miss an episode. Also, you can continue the conversation online with me in my Facebook group, the Teach Joyfully Podcast Community, where elementary teachers can connect, get help, and encouragement for all kinds of education and parenting topics. You can find the show notes and links to all the resources mentioned in today's episode on my website at www.hopeineducation.com/podcast. And remember, a happy teacher is a good teacher. Until next time, teach joyfully and take care of you.